Man, glad to be with you guys this morning. I am actually doing one of our men's coaching weekends, a place we affectionately call Deer Camp. And we've been wallowing in integrity for 3 days. It feels like 2 weeks. But we've had 30 guys here working the story, guys getting honest, getting real, beginning to live a new life in a real way, just walking in integrity. And I just want to introduce my brother, Phil Harden, who started these 23 years ago. And I've asked Phil just to kind of give you guys how we define integrity.
Cool. Thank you, bro. I love my brother, Roane, and I get to do these weekends together, and our guys are here this morning as we're finishing up. The whole idea of integrity, especially as we live it out here in our context at our men's coaching weekend, is the idea, and I would just show it like this. Integrity obviously means to come together, to fit together. And what our brokenness does is split us. And then what we tend to do is to hide the broken part, the sinful part, and just show everybody what we want them to see. And that makes us even more broken. So what integrity means that we bring together both our gifted parts and our broken parts. And you will not be whole between Eden and heaven without working with your broken parts rather than hiding them. And so integrity means to come together. Ecclesiastes 7, verse 18 says, and the one who loves God comes forth with both of them. He actually brings them to the table and they fit together. And that's what we do here at our men's coaching weekends.
Yes. So guys, I printed out about 5 pages of notes on integrity and the 5th step. The 5th step is just simply admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. And certainly James 5:16 is the biblical model for that. Confess your sins, tell your story one to another so that you may be healed. And rather than preaching a sermon on integrity, what I thought I would do, I'm just going to read my story from our book that we wrote called Be the Lion, 10 Guidelines for Men to Be Real and Live Free. It just kind of breaks down what we do in these weekends. And in the back part, there's the stories of Deer Camp. And mine is one of them. And so I'm just going to read this, and I think it illustrates what integrity is all about. Recovering the life God intended, in order for there to be a resurrection, there must be a death. February the 11th, 1990 was the day of reckoning for me, for my marriage, for my denial. All the old ways had to die to make way for the new. It was certainly not a one-time event. There are many deaths along the way to the redemption and resurrection of 2 broken people in a broken marriage. This is true in all of our lives. It is growth by subtraction. As God strips away the mask, the false self we hide behind in order to deal with our fear, pain, hurts, and wounds, so we can recover the life He intended us to live. Standing in the kitchen, I was numb, tired, and exhausted from all the drama over the years. Of course, it was all Eva's fault. If she would just leave me alone, stop trying to control me, quit being mean and asking questions all the time, I would be fine. I was living from a victim mindset. I didn't know this at the time, but that's what victims do. They blame everyone else. When you have no sense of self, no structure, no foundation, and no boundaries, your tendency is to point the finger at everyone and everything around you. We were having another argument, but this time it seemed different. She didn't appear to be quite as angry as times in the past. What's wrong with you? Why are you so down? I just stood there, frozen in my disassociated numbness. I could hear the words, but it felt if I wasn't in the room, as if I was there but not there. And then it happened. The unexplainable prompting of an unspeakable answer. I have a problem with pornography. Suddenly, I was no longer zoned out. I was completely present and completely terrified. The look on Eva's face was fear, shock, and confusion. I looked around as if trying to find the person that spoke these words out loud to her, because I would have never said it to her on my own. It was not a conscious thought or decisions. The words just tumbled out of my mouth as if in slow motion. It was my first experience with the reality that God is the jealous lover of our souls. He will do whatever it takes to strip away the false idols in our lives. The words had to be spoken. All the darkness had to be exposed to the light. It always happens. Everything hidden in our lives will be revealed. What man covers, God uncovers. There were more revelations to follow as I dribbled out over time all the shameful things I'd done and what we now know as a staggered disclosure. The deep, dark secrets I'd worked so hard to hide were being exposed little by little. It was much more than just porn. I was living a double life, crossing flesh lines as my sexual addiction progressed from pornography to strip clubs, massage parlors, and ultimately prostitutes. At the same time, I was very involved in church because I desperately wanted to be good. You can't talk about this in Sunday school or church, so I was left to deal with this hidden secret problem on my own. My shame, fear, and pride all worked against that part of me desiring freedom from this bondage I'd known for too long. This was the beginning of a slow, painful death of false love, delusional false reality, and ultimately our dysfunctional marriage. Before there can be a resurrection, there must always be a death. It is the death of the false self as we unlearn all the wrong ways of just surviving and learning the new way of actually living life, the life of abundance Jesus promises us today in the here and now. I was born into a family with two older brothers, 4 and 5 years older than me. I don't have many memories of our nuclear family, except for the explosion of divorce that decimated the world that I knew. My older brothers became my surrogate parents, the wolf pack, as I like to call them, and I ran with the pack. We had very few rules, if any, and our mother's attitude was boys will be boys. Drinking was encouraged. Porn was on the bedside table. There was no curfew, limits, or boundaries. The lack of parental guidance and involvement created an environment that was ripe for the development of full-blown addiction. I grew up in the Easter Christian denomination. We went to church at Easter, maybe. This also made me feel different because in Mississippi, everybody goes to church, but not us. I was ambushed by Jesus when I was a sophomore in college, and it was real because at that age, I quit drinking, cussing, and smoking. I became a good Baptist. We started going to church at that point and have been involved in church ever since. But church was not going to bring healing to all the broken parts inside of me. I was wearing the mask and trying hard to be right, but it wasn't until I admitted my sin, confessed to God and others, that the true healing process began, and it continues today. I've now been in recovery, recovering the life God intended for me to live for over 34 years. We moved back to Mississippi in 2008, and I met Phil Harden soon after. It was a spirit meets spirit encounter, and very soon I was at my first deer camp in the fall of '08. I had been in recovery and support groups since my disclosure to my wife in 1990, along with men's groups, men's Bible studies in the churches that I was a part of. But deer camp brought all this together in a very real way. I call deer camp a hybrid of a church men's group and a 3-day clinical intensive for men. Not that we are here acting as counselors or therapists, because we're not. We're simply facilitating a weekend that leads regular men, good churchmen and no churchmen, into a whole new way of walking with God in a real and intimate way. It is men learning and experiencing what it really means to live life together in authenticity, transparency, honesty, which is integrity. And this is true intimacy. Integrity and intimacy are inextricably linked together. You cannot have one without the other because secrets, silence, and judgment kill intimacy. Deer Camp creates an environment of trust and safety, enabling men to get honest about the true condition of their souls. Until we get honest with ourselves and others, not much is going to change in our life. The first step is admitting that we have a problem, and we all have problems in some way. It is a courageous act for a man to sit in a circle with real men and tell his story, the good, the bad, and the ugly. The fifth step is exhibited in James 5:16, and it points the way to the healing of our souls. Confess, tell your whole story, one to another, so that you may be healed. Deer Camp is truly a place of help and hope for so many men that have been a part of our weekends. We have the privilege of seeing God move in the hearts of men, bringing healing to the shameful and dark corners hidden deep in men's hearts. It is a sacred place and true holy ground. The ongoing opportunities for men to stay connected and grow in community have created a very deep and strong community of real men in our area. And I believe this quote by our Deer Camp alumni emeritus and nationally renowned therapist, Eli Machen, sums it up best. This is testosterone-driven integrity, where raw wilderness invites raw transparency that calls to the wildness of men's souls. So guys, chew on this as you walk out the rest of this day. Some of you will run it out, and also the rest of your life.
Thanks.
Peace of Christ to you, my brothers.